Alrighty guys, so I got the truck pushed back and I got the transmission mocked up to it, and this makes me real happy. I really like that I can have the transmission attached to the engine and then just load the whole thing right in the front, not have any issues with it, because I used to have to load the transmission and the engine separately, and that was always really annoying. You're doing two different things, and my goal with this is to have it really simple to remove. So with this style engine mount, it'll basically be one bolt on each side. I will probably have 2 bolts or 4 bolts on the cross member. And I'm even kind of thinking about seeing if I can do a bulkhead for the wire harness through the firewall. So that way you could have like 1 or 2 plugs for the harness, 2 bolts for the engine, 2 bolts for the transmission, and literally just pull the whole thing out. Of course, you'd have some other stuff to manage, like the heater hoses and AC lines if I do that, and like a couple other little things, but the basic idea would be to make it super simple to pull the whole thing out. I mean, it is going to be a forged bottom end, so hopefully I shouldn't be pulling it out for the engine that often, but maybe, you know, other issues, or I want to rebuild stuff. So now I'll put it in the rest of the way and then kind of mock everything up and see what I need to do for the mounts. And I did set up this table, and I basically have the transmission gutted right now, because this transmission, when the converter failed and the bearing sent a bunch of metal through everything, I got rid of the pump and the input shaft and the valve bodies off of it, so I figured I'd just gut it, and now it's really light to work with. What I have now, though, is that this truck is so damn low that I can't push the hoist underneath it. So I have to actually use these bottle jacks and then lift it up enough to get the hoist under. Which I guess I'll just have to keep that in mind as I'm trying to do this thing, that if I have this jacked up a little bit, it might not be level. So I think what I might just do is actually just measure this and see where it's at and then where I lift it to. So it's right at 9 inches right now. So if I go up 2 inches or whatever with this, then I'll just take the back of the frame and go up 2 inches with it. Okay, so I got it in, kind of mocked up. I'm using the Tremec Angle Finder app again, and it's fluctuating between 0.1 and 0. So I did end up putting one manifold on this side just because there's a lot of weight from the power steering pump on this side. So I kind of offset it a little bit, and then I've just been adjusting these brackets kind of in and out to adjust the weight. So it's basically flat straight across, and then if I move it over to here, you got about 3.5 degrees. And if I just turn it a little bit, you can see there it's going down closer to 2.9, 3 degrees. There, now we got 2. So now I'll just turn this thing like a half a turn. Now we're at like almost 4 degrees. So I'm gonna leave this thing around the like 3.5 range. It does look pretty good this way. And I did mock up the mounts. The mounts actually do look pretty decent. So I know I mentioned in the last video that I didn't think that these brackets were gonna be long enough. But if I actually get down and test fit this thing and hold it in there, so there's plenty of bracket length for where the factory mount is. So that should actually work decent. So I think where I was getting hung up before is I used my old mounting position, and then I mocked it up with that one, and it wasn't enough because I think I had the engine higher before. So this one is actually sucked down a little bit more, back a little farther. So overall, I like it. This is gonna be kind of hard to get this angle, but this bolt that's hanging down right here, there's 2 bolts hanging down. So the factory like transfer case guard bolted on. So it's a plate that came down and dipped underneath the transfer case. So that thing bolted right on. And if I look at where the transmission mounts, it's basically lined up right with this first hole. So I'm liking the position of everything. Everything looks pretty good. So tomorrow I'll probably start cutting and actually putting everything in there. I think where I'm gonna start is on the transmission cross member first. That way I don't have to worry about the engine swinging front to back at all. It would just be a little bit of side to side motion. That way it's not swinging around when I'm trying to make templates to trace onto the engine mount brackets. One thing I should test quick is the air conditioning bracket. I want to see what that does, because the old position I had the engine in, it was a little bit higher, so I think it was actually hitting this control arm section. So I want to see if maybe now that the engine's lower, if it'll fit. Okay, so I tested that, and it's not really even close. I can physically fit the body of the compressor in there, but this mount right here hits the top of the compressor and where the hoses come out. This bracket is also pretty big and bulky. So I was doing a little bit of research on it today, and there are some mini compressor kits that fit down here and bolt in pretty tight. There are also options for moving it up here. The Holley accessory drives are really nice because they're so compact. One puts the AC compressor like right here, and one it puts the alternator right here, so it's so tight, but they're like $3,000, so I'm definitely not gonna spend the money on that. But there are other options. I just gotta, get passionate about it and decide if I want to do it or not. I mean, I'm not afraid to like cut some of this stuff out. So if I find a nice little kit that I can just cut that out, notch some of it, and rebrace it, I'd be fine with that. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now, and looking good. I'm really happy about this position because my other one, I never really did any of this stuff. I never measured any angles. I measured the angle when I did the drive shaft, but it was already in there and it was already done. So I didn't change anything. I just kind of flopped everything in. I think the engine was even crooked in there. So yeah, this is the old transmission mount, and you can see this section, it's actually crooked. Like this is taller than this. So the whole thing was actually in there crooked. So yeah, that's kind of the whole point of this rebuild, is fix all the stuff that I didn't really like and try to make it a little bit better. All right, so that's it for this one. Next time, it'll be in there and bolted in, hanging by itself.